my name is Nicole from theladypreferstosave.com, and this handsome guy here
is Daniel,
my husband, and today we are bringing you day 9 of Vlogmas, where we will be talking about our favorite kids books. So stay tuned and see what holiday books we're reading this season. So to begin, we typically like to get books from our local library. It keeps our stacks a little bit more minimal, and that way our entire family gets to read a different holiday book each day of the month. And we picked out a few of our favorite selections this month, so let's dig in. The first one we are loving is The Fir Tree by Hans Christian Andersen. And if you're not familiar with this story, I'm not going to give spoilers. It's an awesome story. And a lot of the books, because of the Scandinavian tradition, as you can see, have a lot of really pretty Nordic inspired illustrations to it. So for kids, I would say maybe 6, 7 and older, they would really appreciate more so than the little kids, but the story is great. Not a traditional Christmas story, but a winter story that is very reminiscent of the season and something that everyone should read. And the next one is The Snow Queen, also by Hans Christian Andersen. And anyone familiar with the story, this is definitely something that is wonderful this time of year to read. And aren't those just beautiful? It's a quick read. It's something to read in the evening with your kid. Not necessarily a bedtime story. It's a little bit long for that, but a beautiful edition. Definitely see if your local library has this. And both of these two books are by Sanna Anuka, and they are really pretty. And I want to say these are 2016 edition cloth bounds, so definitely see if your library has those. Okay, Daniel, what's next?
I got Busca and the Three Kings. So it's really nice. It's a Russian, Eastern European story, and the art's really cool because it's kind of like that throwback, classic, Czech sort. I guess a Czech would be a good way to say it, but very Eastern European in the art. And my family has a heritage going back to Czechoslovakia, so it's kind of nice to see stuff like this in the house. It's kind of cool. So, this is by Ruth Robbins, so it's a good book. It's really good, and it's
and it won
Caldecott.
Yeah,
The Caldecott medal, so it's a good book.
Okay, and the next one, part of our home collection, are the Stories of Christmas by Charles Dickens. This is one of our go-tos. I absolutely love it. And not just for A Christmas Carol, of course, the story of Scrooge and his betterment, his humanity reawakening, as it were. This edition also holds one of my other favorite Dickens tales, and that's The Cricket on the Hearth. And if you're familiar with the Rankin Bass cartoons of the 60s and 70s, you will know The Cricket and the Hearth, one of my absolute favorites and a must read. While this edition is from Barnes & Noble, and I want to say it is, yes, a 2003 edition. Every library would have Charles Dickens, so this is something that you could easily pick up. Also on, what is that site you go to for books?
It's the press company, original press, Gutenberg.
The Gutenberg.org. Anything that is part of the public domain would be free for both audiobook and for PDF download, so definitely check them out. You don't even have to leave your home. Also, there are a lot of great narrated classics on YouTube, so definitely check those out, and that would be a great fun family activity, absolutely free. The next that I was excited to see at the library was Christmas in the Big Woods. I love Laura Ingalls Wilde, and this was a beautiful, beautiful edition, and Renee Garoff did a beautiful job. A lot of these illustrations remind me of the American Girl books that I read as a child, and so these are in the same vein, and there's just a beautiful quick story. One of the stories that's actually in the short story collection that you can find from Laura Ingalls Wilde, which is probably already in your library. I have never seen it on the Gutenberg, but it could be. But definitely check this out. Very, very pretty. Great story, especially if your children have siblings. It has a lot to do with appreciating family and a lot of sisterhood and camaraderie in this book. What's next, Daniel?
One of my favorites is The Wind in the Willows Christmas. Growing up in Orlando, we used to go to Disney World a lot, and one of my favorite rides, it's no longer there anymore, was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So I like anything Wind in the Willows. Really great classic illustration. Just kind of continuation of the story, the characters Rat and Toad.
And as a book that would translate well to children of all ages, it's not necessarily specific to any age group. And it's short enough that it could be a bedtime story and long enough that it has a good morality tale to it. So we definitely recommend this book. Really beautiful illustrations.
And the artwork's that classic, almost like fairy tale art, which I like.
The next book we picked up this year was The Nutcracker Coming to America. If you were a fan of The Nutcracker, I danced as a child and also was in theater and dramatists quite often, so this is something I really, really looked forward to reading, and this is the story of how it came to the American stage, set for children, and is a really pretty, pretty story and beautifully illustrated, especially if you have children that are in dance or theater. You get to see the 19-teens illustrations of how that came about, and I really enjoyed this. This was written by Chris Barton and illustrated by Kathy Gurdon, and your library will probably have that one too. What's next?
I have the book called The Amazing Christmas Extravaganza. It's just one of those really big Christmas books, big children's books, more like it. Just great art, almost like it was a Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs kind of art. Very nice. I enjoyed that kind of artwork when I was a kid. It's a good story. It's just a good classic. It's a good book for kids. I think it's just
Who is this by? This is by David Shannon, The Amazing Christmas Extravaganza. Check your local library. And guys, sometimes if your library doesn't have this book, pick up a Christmas book, enjoy it with your family, and donate it to your local children's section of your library. And that way the book will be there for years to come, not just for your family, but also for others.
Okay. Next we have a classic. It's The Night Before Christmas, or A Visit from St. Nicholas, taken off of the Robert Nast drawings of Santa Claus, like the original pre-Coca-Cola Santa Claus, which is kind of interesting to note. You see how that actually, going back to the 1900s, how the image of Santa Claus changes. He's got a green jacket here, and now it's like all red. There's no red. There's no other colors besides red for Santa Claus. But this goes back to actually classic American history and how Christmas and specifically Santa Claus becomes part of the narrative, of the American narrative.
This Santa is reminiscent of the pre-industrialized Santa. This is before the greeting card industry reinterpretation of Santa Claus. And so a lot of these images from Robert Nast, just from my art history background, were what were originally used by the greeting card industry. So if you want to see kind of a time lapse of what Christmas cards looked like that maybe your grandparents or great-grandparents would have sent, these are what it would have looked like. So definitely check out this new edition. I want to say this is a 2010 edition from your local library. It's really, really pretty, and I enjoyed it. And the best part, of course, is reading it the night before Christmas.
The next one we have is Irene Jenny and the Christmas Masquerade. And like we did the Snow Queen and the Busca and the Three Kings, it's a cultural book. It's more of different Christmases for different people.
This book takes place in the Jim Crow South, and it shows how people who were oppressed and disenfranchised and who didn't have a lot still held on to their Christmas traditions and made the most of it. And there's something that you can take away from this to see, you know, not just how beautifully illustrated this is, but how it's the event, it's the time leading up to Christmas and not the presents and not the day of that's truly important. It's the time you spend with your family. And so we really enjoyed Irene Jenny and the Christmas Masquerade. And it is by Irene Smalls and was illustrated by Melody Rosales. Definitely pick that up at your local library.
Yeah, it's just a really pretty book too. The art on it's really nice.
And last but not least, my personal favorite holiday book is The Velveteen Rabbit, an absolute classic. And this Marjorie Williams book is one of my favorites. And talk about the ultimate redemption story. If you know anything about it, for those who have not read it, I will not spoil it, but the rabbit has a good ending. It's beautifully written. It's just really pretty. And it's a tale that children can appreciate events and people in their lives and not just things. And sometimes when you love things very much, they become a little bit more important. And so I definitely recommend reading this book. Beautifully illustrated edition from 1996, but something that everyone of all ages could definitely take something away from. And I also believe on Netflix there is an illustrated version of this book as both a ebook or a audiobook rather. And there was a movie that was put out 4 or 5 years ago for children that I believe is on there. There's also several animated sketch movies on YouTube from the 1960s and 70s that are charcoal sketches of the Velveteen Rabbit, so that might be something you want to pick up as well. I also believe since this book is nearing the 100-year mark, it will probably be on Gutenberg Press as well, so definitely check this out. But more than likely your library will have this one, but definite classic. You should always know this story. It is beautiful and my favorite. Also, I wanted to mention that on the sidebar of theladypreferstosave.com, there is a little icon that you can go ahead and click and check out our post for our all-time 13 favorite Christmas books, including The Velveteen Rabbit. So if you want to see even more of what our family reads each season, definitely check that out. There are favorites from our family for the kiddos, a few favorites from his mother and my grandmother, and books that we really feel that everyone should take a look at. And the best part is they are all part of the public domain and will be available at your local library, so definitely check out that post. It's also linked in the description bar below in my holiday post to check out from theladypreferstosave.com, so check those out. And guys, those were our favorite holiday books. Those are a few modern ones, a few reinterpretations, a few cultural books, and a few books that we just definitely really wanted to check out this year. Any final thoughts, Daniel?
I think it's just really important to use the books, not just for the books themselves, but for the opportunity it presents to read. Something that even at our age, we like to read to each other before we go to bed.
Our age.
Well, my age. Well, just it's important to spend time with your family, with your kids, with your spouse, and reading is a great way to show someone you care. So.
And think of the season as an opportunity to reimagine and rethink what it is to give a gift, whether it be a kind word to a stranger, whether it be reading a story to your children. Think about taking a few hours in an afternoon on a Saturday and signing up for your local library to read stories to children. There are many people who unfortunately don't have parents who can read to them, whether it be because of literacy issues or because working people just don't have the time to do that. And so if you can give that gift of literacy to others, definitely do that this season. And above all, read a book for yourself. Read a story just because it makes you feel good. It's beautiful to see a story on television. It's even better if you can hold it in your hand. So with that, I would like to leave you with this thought. Whatever you do this season, remember that there are words around us and they truly mean a lot, and they mean even more when they had good cheer behind them. So as always, be kind to yourself and to others, and have a wonderful rest of your day, and come on back here tomorrow